I'm going to talk to you about the role of fathers in general, raising kids with autism in particular, and the relationship we have with our partners. And I'll tell you a little about me and how I understand the psychology of men and fatherhood and how that applies to the journey we're all on. Right? So the title of this is Involved Fathers Get Results, and the beginning of it I'm going to talk to you about recent research about fatherhood in general and fatherhood with kids with special needs and autism in more particular. So these, the photos in this collage are all dads I've met around the country and the world who are very involved, you know, doing projects, raising their kids, but doing projects for others, because that's a guy thing, we do projects. So we're pretty good at complaining about systems, telling stories. We're not as good in terms of communicating our inner lives, especially to the women in our lives. And just like the rest of you. How many of you watch Sport Talk Radio? Sports Talk Radio? Come on, tell the truth. Tell the truth. There's more of you listening to this, I'm sorry. All right. So, but I'll tell you a little about my dad in the beginning, because, you know, to understand a man, you sort of have to understand where he came from. So my father grew up without a father. There he is with me, 1950. I'm dating myself a little. My father was in London, outside London on an air base for 3 years. He grew up in Girard College, which is an orphanage. If you're from Philadelphia, you know where it is and what it is. He went to college on the GI Bill. He was your typical Arabic cab driver by day and went to college at night. And he was a sergeant in the Army, and we were his privates. You know, that's my dad. He loved us passionately, and he gave us more than he got. It wasn't always enough. And so when I became a father, I wanted to do a better job than he did. I thought that would be easy. It really wasn't. But here's what I read in his eulogy in 2000. It's from E.E. Cummings. My father was a true father. He loved me. And because he loved me, I loved him. First as a child with the love which is worship, then as a youth with the love that gives battle, and last as a man with the love which understands. So I think the way E.E. Cummings put it is not everybody's journey, but it resonates with a lot of men as to our journey growing up, our relationship with our fathers. So now, what we know now is that fathers make a huge difference through their involvement with their children. This isn't the father knows best world anymore. We're much more engaged in this century. And it makes a huge difference whether you're raising a typical kid or a kid with special needs. So this slide's from the Kuwait Center for Autism, where I'm a consultant and travel there every 6 months. And here's a father who came from Bahrain just to get my view of how his kid was doing, came with his family. So his wife, a more traditional Muslim, was not going to be in the picture. But they were happy to share this. And what a beautiful boy, and what dedicated parents. So here's a recent study from the CDC, 2013, and the article I think Tom sent at one point has all the references, but if you want this PowerPoint, I'll give Tom the PDF and you can have the whole thing. So by 2013, 90% of American fathers were changing diapers. My father bragged that he never changed one. Now, I'm the oldest of my parents' 8 children. This is what happens when an Arab marries a religious Catholic. So I've been taking care and helping overwhelmed parents as long as I can remember. Then I had a kid with autism, and I was overwhelmed. So 9 in 10 dads change diapers. So the whole image of what it is to be a man raising a kid in our lifetime has changed. Now, what's the benefit? And you can look at this study and they crunch all the numbers. There's like 15,000 families in this study, whatever. But what benefits children is when fathers are hands-on, playing with their kids, eating meals together, helping with homework. What's the result? Increased academic success, less behavior problems, less substance abuse, and healthier eating. Fathers eating dinner with their families results in healthier eating. Better grades, less violence, less substance abuse. All right, that's an aggregate of the population. Now, meanwhile, mothers are spending a little more time outside the home. Fathers are more involved inside the home. Mothers are spending more time outside the home. So by 2011, moms spent almost twice as much time with their children as fathers. They're still spending twice as much time. But fathers tripled the amount of time they were spending with their kids, from 2.5 hours in 1965 to 7.3 hours in 2011. Fathers still report they don't spend as much time as they want with their kids. I never met a man who complained of spending too much time with their kids. It's the opposite. Fathers wish, in general, they spent more time with their kids. As traditional fathers, we were looked upon primarily as financial providers, but now it means much more. Now we're responsible for spiritual and emotional provision and protection. So, but there's more that's beneficial now. So fathers play styles. We throw our kids up in the air, right? This is it. You saw, like what was streaming while you were eating was a slideshow of my son growing up. You know, there's one slide, I'm throwing him up in the air. So there's actually benefit to this for typical kids as well as kids with autism. The father's more active, rough and tumble play style is a benefit. And often, you know, we're more like the fun guy. So that's not easy for moms. We come home, we're the fun guy. The kids are glad to see us. They're burnt out. You know, I'm sorry. It's just the way it happens, you know? But that more rough and tumble style is also beneficial. And it's beneficial to kids with autism who tend to be more active and physical. Which is not to say there's anything wrong with the mother style. Kids benefit from both. So the play style is a benefit. We have a different language style, men versus women. So how's it different? Women speak more baby talk to young children. Men speak in longer sentences and more complicated language. Turns out both things are good for kids and help with language acquisition. Both styles are good. So here's the study, and fathers often offer different language models, and that makes important contributions to children's language development. Even though we speak more complexly, that's still beneficial. That doesn't mean we shouldn't slow down and sometimes speak more simply, by the way. It's just that our difference is not detrimental in and of itself. We still have to learn to connect with our kids as who they actually are and how they can communicate with us. So these involve fathers, and look, you're here. I mean, you're some of the above. The other benefit is that by being more involved in child rearing, you make your partner happier. So fathers who read to their infants with autism and take active roles in caregiving promote healthy development in their children, and mothers' mental health is better when fathers are more engaged in the hands-on activities with their kids. I didn't make this up, these are facts, the studies are here. So mothers bear more of the burden, more of the heavy lifting, and father involvement improves the mental health of the mothers. It also leads to healthier, happier men at work. There's a recent article in Forbes that comes from a scholarly study that found that men who spend more time with their children are likely to have a greater sense of satisfaction on the job, less desire to change jobs, and less likely to experience conflict at home. So see, if you have those things going, you're happier. If you're always looking for another job, you're not so happy. We found that young people with autism in the Autism at Work program are less likely to leave. That's one reason corporations are recruiting them. There's good retention. So, a little about my story. How many of you who have kids on the spectrum had normal early development? Normal early development? You thought your baby was healthy? Right? That was mine. Here's the proof. Look at the eye contact. 1 day old. 1 day old. If I didn't have this picture, I wouldn't remember it. 1 day old. About 95% of our kids are seemingly normal at birth. We know that their brains are wired differently, and those differences emerge in the second year of life, generally speaking. So just, reflect for a moment. If we had a lot of time, I'd go around the room, I'd ask you what is coming up for you, but pay attention to what's coming up inside you as you remember the differences emerging. This is my son in the second year of life. That's 35 years ago. He stopped talking. He started spinning and flapping. He never spoke another word. I've been living and learning about autism ever since. After a while, I started helping other people live and learn about autism and learn to love their children as they are and help them grow to be their best selves. But the diagnosis of a developmental disorder like autism can be a trauma that stops time in its tracks. Suddenly your future's unpredictable and maybe unimaginable. What's the difference between us and the typical parents of typical kids? They just think they know the future. That's a pleasant delusion. Because, as we all know, life can just kind of turn in a moment. I mean, recently here at Hill Top, a family lost their house to fire. I mean, the community came forward, but in that moment, their life turned. It'll never be the same. They will survive and go on, but that trauma stopped time for them. That can happen for everybody. They already had a kid with a spectrum, but that can happen to anybody. Some parents tell me, maybe many of you would agree, I can't even die. Because who's going to do what I do? Who's going to take care of my kid when I'm gone? Where are they going to live? Who's going to tell them how to live? A common thing I hear. Another one, especially parents of younger kids, every time the phone rings, I jump. Never knowing what's happening at school, when's there going to be an emergency. So this is chronic emotional trauma. Many of us live with it all the time. The question is, how do we learn to live with it, be our best selves, and be as comfortable as we can be, and as happy as we can be, and help our kids to grow and learn. So let me talk about the male part. That's why you're here tonight. Nelson Mandela put it this way: a boy may cry, a man conceals his pain. Most of us are like that. I wouldn't say everybody. These are just general things. There's certain traditional male role norms, even though the world's changing, these are still the norms. We avoid femininity. Any sign of weakness is not to be tolerated as a boy. We restrict our emotional expression. We're more achievement-oriented, although modern liberated women are also achievement-oriented. But we've been achievement-oriented from the beginning. We compete in order to make friends. Girls socialize in order to make friends. Relate in order to make friends. We compete. We're self-reliant. We don't like to ask for help. Best invention for men, the GPS. It's usually a female voice. She just says recalculating. Great invention. Eliminates a lot of arguments. You don't know where you're going. Why don't you stop and ask directions? Oh man, I love my GPS. We're more physically forceful, sometimes more aggressive. Homophobia is still a male role norm. If you doubt that, think about November 2016. Non-relational attitudes towards sexuality, in other words, more common to see women as sexual objects. These are still traditional male characteristics that men today are trying to shed. And we're all, I think everybody here's guys are probably on this journey. Because I know my wife and my daughters have been telling me, calling me out every time I slip. Which is not a little bit. It's not a little bit. So, do these norms work very well? I don't know. But the only emotion that's socially acceptable for guys is anger. To be anxious, to be afraid, this is not socially acceptable. We're still teaching boys to man up. Man up. It's like probably the worst thing we could say. I remember like it was yesterday when my parents told me I was 6. I had just gotten into a fight with a neighborhood bully. I was crying and they said, "Big boys don't cry, go back out there." Well, I never came to crying again. So, are we allowed to be vulnerable? Not too often. Not too often. We're supposed to be strong, or we think we are. And what do we do when we can't solve a problem? Our minds, we're all engineers of problems. We want to solve them. There's nothing wrong with that. Women want to solve problems too. But the rub is that for men, if we can't solve it, then we don't want to talk about it. That's the relational problem. That's the relational problem. We're more alike than different. But the male differences cause relationship problems. So can we learn to really listen without trying to fix something? Pretty hard. Pretty hard. I'm still working on it. I'm trying to get it better. I'm improving. What I've learned, having a wife and 2 daughters who are strong feminists, is shut up and get out of their way. They will tell me what I can do to help if that's possible. And they will tell me, just listen. And that's a relief. So my message to men is that just listening is actually doing something. That's an action. Right? So if we can translate listening into an action, we're better off. Now, why do we want to fix things? That's not bad. That's how we show our love. That's a good thing. But if we can become better listeners, we can become better problem solvers, and that improves love. So, but the male experience has set us up. The early male experience sets us up for trouble. Now, living in a world with a lot of feminists, we got to change. So actually, male infants are more socially expressive than female infants. Would you guess? It's true. Numerous studies for decades have documented this. Alexithymia is the inability to put emotions into words. It's quite common in boys and men, but male infants are more emotionally expressive than female infants. What happens? Boys are left to cry it out in general, and girls are comforted. So man up starts really early, and it begins to wire the brain. The neurons that fire together wire together. You do this enough, and that's how your brain automatically works. So we're taught to be less emotional and more logical. So of course we grow up and that's who we are. We've been reinforced for it. It's how learning happens. And this phenomena is at the root of why we have trouble expressing ourselves. So we're more alike than different, and here's some interesting tidbits on it. So Deborah Tannen is a linguist. She wrote a lot about the different male and female styles. Her books were bestsellers. So there was a myth that was going around for a long time that women speak about 20,000 words a day, 13,000 more than the average guy. Actually not true. It's contextual. In other words, women don't actually speak more words than men, but it's what they're talking about. Women are more likely to collaborate, seek rapport, seek support, while men are more likely to report on something. And don't interrupt us, we have to finish the story. You have kids on the spectrum, they gotta finish the story? This is a little like the average guy. Don't stop me, I gotta tell you what happened to get the whole story. The kids on the spectrum are just a more pronounced version. All right? Now, saying, this is another thing from Deborah Tannen. I love to Google around and find things for lectures. I hadn't seen this quote before the other day. Saying that men talk about baseball in order to avoid talking about their feelings is the same as saying that women talk about their feelings in order to avoid talking about baseball. So we talk about different things, not necessarily less words. Sports talk radio is full of gossip. Who's getting fired? Who's getting hired? Who's going to be a free agent? Who's complaining about not enough playing time? It's all, that's what you hear. It's the male equivalent of chick flicks. But what's going on in families of raising kids who are different? So mothers are passionate and obsessed with the challenge. Fathers early on are finding trouble finding the words. I know I couldn't get the word autism out of my mouth. That A word just stuck in my throat. So Winnicott was a British child psychiatrist. He put it this way, and he was talking about the typical mothers and typical kids. Primary maternal preoccupation is a consuming attachment to one's baby, a normal sickness from which most mothers recover. And he was talking about the mothers of typical children who have a little less to be preoccupied about. So maternal preoccupation is normal. What happens when you have a kid so different? What happens? Does it go away quicker? It digs a hole in you. It camps out in your heart. And fathers during that period feel more alone, more isolated. And we need to recognize that a mom being preoccupied with a child's difference is normal and natural. You wouldn't want another mother for your kid, but it's not healthy to stay obsessed and preoccupied indefinitely. That's the problem. That's the dilemma we're in as couples and as families. We could talk about accepting kids with autism and I will talk about that a little more, but there's also who we become as a family and how we accept that whole range of experience in each other, because it's not the same. We're not one human being on the same exact journey. We're partners with different perspectives, different mindsets, and so on. So, what works? Like, I kind of boiled this down into like a half hour, 45 minutes. So, and women love this part. For men, it's not bad. I'll get to the part men really like in a minute. So, here's how to help us talk, and here's how to, guys, it helps other guys to talk to you, but the worst thing in the world is how do you feel? I mean, a lot of women don't like that question either. And look, I'm a psychologist. I talk to people all day, every day. I learned not to ask that question to virtually anybody. Tell me your story, because if people tell you what's going on in their life, their feelings are embedded in their story. You'll understand it. What's it like for you? Just what's it like for you? Tell me your experience. Being curious about another person, that's much better than empathy. That's much better than, oh, that must really feel hard. Or, oh, it must be so hard to have a kid like yours. No. Being curious, though, what's it like? What's your day like? Or what happened on your weekend? What went right? What went wrong? Being curious. Tell me more. So when a guy starts talking about their life, let them know you're interested, you want to know more. Why? I need to know, to be your friend, to be your wife, to be your brother. I need to know. Your child needs you. It takes courage to open up. I admire you for that. And best of all, let's make a plan. The male mind wants a plan. So when I'm talking to teachers and therapists, I advise them to tell fathers, we're having a meeting to make a plan. That'll get better buy-in. Right? We need plans. And it's not that women don't need plans, but we have a hard time talking about things if we don't know there's a plan at the end. All right. Now, this is the part the guys will like the most. What do men tell me they want? They want their partners to understand that we're trying to help and we get frustrated when we can't make things better. We want more time as a couple without the kids and a little more sex. I'm trying to be appropriate here. A little less emotion so we can discuss problems and find solutions. Don't tell me this is a lie. I know it's true. We want to feel a little less like an assistant and more like a competent parent. Which is one reason I gave you that research that father's different style is also good for kids. We are less involved with the meetings with teachers and therapists, so we feel more like an assistant. Now, there's something we have to do to change that, which is to step up and be more involved in those processes. But we want to feel less like an assistant and more like a competent co-pilot, right? But to be the co-pilot, or they call it the first officer on an airplane, you got to step up and be there and hear the information firsthand. If you're getting all the information from your partner, you're going to feel like an assistant. It's inevitable. But finally, and maybe most importantly, tell us what we're doing right so we can feel more secure in our relationship. Our kids want to know what they're doing right. We want to know. But men really want to know because we're always making mistakes. We are. We are less socially astute on the average. So, what do women tell me they want? You'll notice look, I've been listening. I became a licensed psychologist in 1989. I've been listening close to 30 years now, 27 years. So I keep a record of it. Women want to be appreciated for all they do. Sounds like one of the things the guys want, right? We all want to be appreciated. They want to attend meetings as a couple instead of alone, as much as possible. It's not always possible. Okay. They want time alone without the children to relax. Now, that's a whole nother issue about how a mom can let go of that in order to have time without the children. That's another lecture. Time together as a couple, that's not just about sex. I've been listening. And guys want women to talk about feelings women want guys to talk about feelings without getting defensive. That's a tough one. But we need to try. We need to work on it. All right. Did these ideas resonate with you? Sound like your life? Sound like your house? And it's the homes of the parents of typical kids. Right? Especially when you have your first child, a family's born. The man becomes a father, the woman becomes a mother. It's not the same after that. It's different. 70% of couples of any kind of kid report becoming less satisfied with the relationship after having a baby and raising that baby. Because you no longer are just there for each other. It's different. So, what do we have to learn along the way in the parenting? We have to learn, one of the things is to learn to be with our children just the way they are, whether they're typically developing or not. So, okay, here's me running with my son. We're at Marsh Creek. Now, when you love someone, you want to hang out with them. It's kind of what love means in a way. But children with autism are often hard to be with. So that's the rub. This is a really deep part of the journey, and they trigger us, and they have their meltdowns, and they go on their tirades, and they only want to eat certain things, and they don't want other people to eat certain things, and it just goes on and on. But being able to find some joy in the relationship between mother and child, between father and child, between the parents, that's where we do have some control, is working on the actual relationship. The autism, we're in some way powerless about. We can't make it go away in that sense. We alter the course of it by how we handle it, by the help we get our kids, by the relationship we have. Parent involvement makes a huge difference in the outcome. So we have to start where the child is, whether you're talking about a little child, a preteen, a teen, a young adult. We have to join where they are. So in this picture, this father would rather have a catch with a football, but his son's more interested in computer games and Legos. So a lot of us had to get interested in things we weren't so interested in. Because our boys, and this is the other part of the male experience, 80% of children diagnosed with autism are boys. That's a particular challenge for their fathers, who are not raising a boy like them for the most part. Now, increasingly, we see fathers of kids with autism, some of them also being diagnosed on the spectrum. We see some mothers being diagnosed on the spectrum. We are better scientifically at spotting males on the spectrum than females on the spectrum for various reasons. So it might not really be 4 to 1. It might be a less dramatic statistic, but nonetheless, 80% currently are boys, not the boys their fathers imagined. So we have to start where your child is, watch, wait, observe, find out what you can do together. That's the missing vitamin. We're really good at, not perfect, but we're good at getting special help, and we're good at complaining about systems. We're not so good being on the floor or at the table and enjoying the kid we actually have. We're too focused on fixing and changing, and that spoils the loving. And the kids need us to have expectations, and they need to be considered children first. Children who are different, but they are children first. So it might not be what you imagined. Here's this little boy lining up cars, classic symptom. Some of yours did it. Being interested in what your child's interested in, maybe it's a computer game, maybe it's the Rubik's Cube, maybe it's whatever, but why would we expect a child to enter our world if we didn't enter his or hers? So I didn't grow up with computer games, but some of the fathers I counsel younger than me, they say, we didn't grow up with those computer games. And I have to say, figure out those computer games. Sit in front of that terminal. Get another controller, because that's the doorway to the relationship often. Leave your child in front of that screen alone, and that child will become more withdrawn, maybe more autistic. So there's no like magic moment. Life with autism is more like Groundhog Day. You know, every day the alarm rings at 6 a.m., the groundhog comes out. You know the movie? It's really like resonates in life. So there's stuff about autism that's like Groundhog Day. However, we suffer, we get through it, and if we keep loving, which most of us do, it makes us different. We're transformed. We become a better human being and more patient. It's a little trickier to become patient with the spouse you've had who you have struggled with over this. So we also, besides accepting our kids, are on a journey to accept our partners and be together as the best human beings we can be. This is Jerry Newport and his wife Mary Newport. She was one of the Klingons in Star Trek. She doesn't look like that here. So Jerry Newport says, you don't have to be normal to be happy, nor do we have to make our child or any other person with autism normal to be happy. There's almost no correlation with normal and happiness. That being said, I won't kid you. I never stopped wanting to hear the sound of my son's voice. I never stopped wondering what he's thinking. And you saw those pictures streaming through here. Those memories live inside me every day. I don't suffer with him anymore. I'm happy with my son. He's happy most of the time. He's autistic 100% of the time. But I don't suffer anymore. I'm not sad about it anymore. I have a good life. It hasn't been an easy life. What I learned was this. I wrote it in a journal. It was later published in my first book. I tried so hard to change you, and in the end it was you who changed me. Instead of becoming the son I wanted you to be, you made me become the man I needed to be. This is a transformational experience, raising any kid and raising a kid with autism. Even more, transforms who we are at our core. It's a spiritual journey. We have to dig really deep. There was a novelist who put it this way: in the dark night of the soul, bright flows the river of God. Takes us inside to places we might not want to go. Here's an action plan, is what you've been waiting for. Action. See, I'm going to relieve you now. Take you on this journey. Acknowledge your frustrations. It's okay to complain. This is not easy stuff. Don't complain all the time. That's tired. But it's okay to complain about things. That's really okay. But don't forget to spend some time each day joining your child on the floor or at the table, having fun, following your child's lead, otherwise known as floor time. But it's intuitive, it's obvious, it's the missing vitamin we all need. Spend time each day with your other children, because life's not fair for them. My youngest daughter called my son Dad Hugger. She wrote about it in a book I edited. And that just spoke so clearly to her position in life. Whenever my son was around, he hogged my attention. He required non-stop attention. Work at understanding your partner's perspective. You know, if you walk a mile in my shoes, or my moccasins, that Native American problem. I find, now, women who have trouble with this, their partner understanding perspective, when they go away for a weekend, they often come home to a transformed man. I assign that sometimes. But take care of yourself. Appreciate what your partner's doing right. Find every example you can of what your partner's doing right. That will make you both happier. Behavioral science tells us that we all we all need 4 or 5 reinforcements for every correction. In other words, it is scientific that nagging doesn't work. Doesn't work. What works is positive reinforcement in all learning. It's learning theory. This isn't, yes, it's ABA, but it came from learning theory, how organisms learn. This is for fathers, attend as many appointments and IEP meetings as possible. Then you will be a full partner. Find a way to connect with other fathers. You're here, I don't have to tell you about this. It's great medicine. Share your story, acknowledge your needs, talk about what's going right. Talk about what's going right. Whether it's your kid, whether it's about your marriage, whether it's about your job, talk about what's going right. Our minds, evolutionary-wise, focus on problems because we do need to solve problems. We are not good at focusing on what's going right. And if we focus more on what's going right, we will find more happiness in life. And modern neuroscience actually confirms that. I just gave you like the Reader's Digest version. So every day, and it doesn't mean nothing's going wrong, and it doesn't mean spin everything into being a positive. It just means pay attention to what's going right. And you will have more going right if you pay attention to that. Like, let your mind linger with what's going right. You can always complain about what's going wrong, and you can always try to fix things. But our minds tend to go to what's going wrong. So the expression for this is, our minds are like Velcro for problems and Teflon for happiness. Happy moments just slip right on by, and then we're on to the next thing. Allow yourself to savor when things are going right. So the Serenity Prayer actually has a lot of wisdom in it for us. This, I think, is the best translation. It came from the German. It was written in German, and this is, I think, the best translation of the German. Give us grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things that should be changed. See, there's an obligation there. This isn't about let it be. We need to work on the changeable and the wisdom to discern the one from the other. That's where serenity is, in the balance of discerning what's changeable and what isn't. And it's a delicate balance. Getting there isn't a one-time thing. It's a thing that's going on all the time. Discerning what's unchangeable and accepting the challenge of what we can work on. Just like, these rocks, they're balanced delicately. And they could fall down and we could put them back up. So take in what makes sense for you from tonight and see if you can really accept and embrace the full spectrum of your experience. All the thoughts and feelings you're having. Look into them. Understand them. Speak truly from your heart to the people you love. That and spend time with your kids who are different, quality time, being with them the way they are, letting go of some of the fixing, still having expectations, but enjoying your children the way they actually are. Because they are, first of all, children. We are, first of all, just men and women, just citizens of this planet, just trying to do our best. So take what makes sense of this for you, hold it lightly, remember to look at what's going right in your life, and I wish you like peace and health and serenity along the way. And my little boy you saw in those pictures never said another word. He taught me he was my first teacher about this stuff. My wife and daughters, they took over from there. And I give them a lot of credit. And the therapists who work with him, they taught me to accept him as he was. Actually, Wilma, who's here tonight, was one of the very first therapists who met my son in the 80s. And what helped me from professionals was that they just appreciated everything my kid could do. And me, I was like, when's he gonna talk? When's he gonna talk? Like a broken record. And I really believed if he didn't talk, I'd never be happy. It took me a long time to get past that. But the people who valued him for his humanity, that helped me go on. So I'm trying to help you in the same way as best I can, because that's what helps me live the life I have. So I wish you well. Be strong, be well, take care of each other, appreciate each other, and on the way home, be safe.
Thank you so much.